Okay, so hey guys, welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Dubois versus Camara fight. And so if you are new around here and you have not yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, the first boxer show of the year. Obviously, like I mentioned, I'm doing a prediction for the Dubois fight, which of course isn't the main event, it's the co-main, which is interesting to see, of course, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But I will also be doing in this prediction a prediction for the main event as well, because it is a good fight, and I am intrigued by the career of Callum Simpson. But starting off going into this fight with Dubois, Dubois is 10-0 with 5 KOs, and Camara is 14-4 with 3 KOs. This fight is for the WBC World Lightweight title. Dubois' last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Monio, and Camara's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Hunter. Dubois is a southpaw. This is in Dubois' home country of England. Camara is 36 and Dubois is 24. And to speak more about what I've just been saying, like I mentioned, this is for that WBC World title, not the interim one in which Dubois was fighting for in her last fight alongside with the IBO title. I'm not really too sure what's happened to the IBO title, if it's just not on the line for this fight or if Dubois has vacated that belt. I'm not too sure, but I know she has been upgraded to a full champion by the WBC as Katie Taylor vacated her belt when she went and fought Amanda Serrano. I believe she vacated all of her belts at the lightweight division, so seemingly they're all available and free. I mean, we've had Beatrice Ferreira, of course, be a champion. We've had Terry Harper recently become a champion, and we've got Dubois as another champion as well. And now we also have that WBA belt as a vacant belt, so that's nice to see. I feel like we've had such a dominant champion in Katie Taylor in the lightweight division. Obviously, she's an amazing fighter, arguably the best women's fighter at the moment, and has achieved so much in the sport and has been such a pioneer, of course, for women's boxing. But it's nice to see these kind of new fighters coming in and getting this recognition and being able to become world champions and have good fights in their own right. And Dubois, she's perhaps progressed a little bit slower than certain other world champions. You look at Terry Harper, she's gone through so much, and even Rhiannon Dixon, to have a fight with Terry Harper was a tough test for her in the stage in her career. But you look at Ferreira as well, perhaps not been tested, about a similar level to that of Dubois, but still progressing along and has had, I believe, less fights from memory than that of Dubois. Perhaps you're looking at boxer kind of cherry picking opponents for Dubois. Of course, as an Olympian, as a silver medalist in the Olympics, often you're going to get progressed quickly. You're going to become a world champion or get a world title shot if you keep winning, probably within your first 10 to 15 fights. Quite often you see that as a world champion, as a Olympic medalist or even an Olympian in general, a lot of the time they get progressed very quickly. And so, it's not been surprising to see that she's become a world champion. It's just, perhaps the level of opposition since becoming world champion, or, the way she picked up the belt, the IBO belt, obviously she then became interim champion. So the level of opposition around the interim title kind of level, obviously she is early on in her career, but perhaps things could get ramped up a little bit. I feel like her last performance was an excellent performance, to be honest. I think she really has shined and has shown improvements with every single performance, and I think that last performance versus Monio was her best performance yet. This fight, I just perhaps feel is a little bit, maybe, I don't know if unnecessary is the word, because every fight's important. You've got to keep active, you've got to keep busy, especially as a world champion. It's very easy to just sit around and wait for big fights to happen and to kind of fall onto your lap. But, I just don't necessarily know how much this fight is going to bring intrigue towards her. Putting it on the undercard of a Callum Simpson show again. Callum Simpson proved in his last fight when he went to Barnsley that he is a good ticket seller. But Dubois, hasn't been given the opportunity. She headlined an event in York Hall a few fights ago. That was a bit of a smaller event, but she hasn't been given that opportunity to really kind of build a bit more of a brand. Perhaps Sky Sports know that she's not the massive ticket seller as of yet and are trying to build her up that way and create a bit of a name for herself by putting her against opponents in which have good records, have good world level rankings, but perhaps haven't faced a level of opposition or haven't been able to quite reached this British market as of yet, so are still a bit of an unknown. I just don't think it's really creating the hype or, she's got that much hype behind her. I think she's a very underrated champion. I think skill wise, she's excellent. There is very few fighters that I've seen in the female rankings that have been able to technically look as good as her. She looks very impressive in that aspect, and I think fights with the likes of a Beatrice Ferreira. I did my 10 fights in which I want to see in boxing in 2025. That fight was on there. I feel like it would be an excellent fight. I think they're both very talented Olympians, and I think it would be a brilliant fight, and hopefully we will see that down the line. I think Dubois, if she wins this one, would be campaigning to be on the Jonas versus Price undercard. I think that would be a great show to be on for herself. I think she could slide right into it if she doesn't take a crazy amount of damage in this fight versus Camara. Obviously, she has to get through it. Camara, I'll speak about in a second, but has had success and could cause problems for Dubois, but I feel like she should be pushing to be on that type of show because that's going to really bring the eyes to her as a champion, I believe, as a full women's event. I mean, the last time that you saw a full women's event really at a big stage was, of course, Shields versus Marshall. That really brought a lot of eyes to them and really kind of made them more noticeable in the kind of worldwide boxing scene, a bit more noticeable names now. Clarissa Shields has gone on to great things since then, has really built a brand since then. You even look at fights on the undercard, Baumgartner and Mayer, I feel like even grew their platform more by being on that show. And so I feel like she should be campaigning to even just be on the undercard of the Jonas versus Mayer fight. And, if not, I feel like it should be at some point. Obviously, they're both with different promoters in Boxer and Queensberry, and Boxer doesn't seemingly get along with Queensberry, and Ben Shalom not really getting along with Frank Warren. But I would love to see an event in which both the Dubois are on the same card. It could be branded very well. They're both world champions, of course, at the moment, and so I think that would be a great thing to do. But will it happen? I'm not too sure, to be completely honest. But, now she, of course, like I mentioned, is a full champion. She has this tough test versus Camara. I'm talking a bit too much, perhaps, in the future at the moment. Camara, as a fighter, she's caused upsets in the past, and they've been against high-level opposition. I mean, she beat Heather Hardy. That was a very good win for herself and a surprising win for herself. And then she went over to Korea a bit more recently and fought Choi out in Korea. That was a very big upset. That was, a 21 win fighter against, a fighter in which has suffered defeats at world level. She's never been able to beat a world champion. She's had, I believe, one world title fight, and she, of course, wasn't able to win. She's had a lot of fights, in Canada, also in America as well, but some of them not even been at the highest of levels. But them two wins really stand out to me, and the fact that she was able to do it against Choi in Korea and be able to win, I believe it was a split decision. It shows she could do it here. It shows that, perhaps this was a little bit ago. It wasn't too long ago, but it was a little bit ago. She's still got it in her, and I feel like even though she is 36 of age, a lot of world champions at the moment are onto the older side at the moment. So this could definitely make for an upset fight. You can't overlook her as an opponent. This is the most attention she has had in her career. This is the most amount of eyes on her, and so she's going to definitely want to put on a show, similar to every type of opponent in which in recent times has come over to fight Caroline Dubois. They've been willing to take the risk to come over to the UK and to fight her. It's not going to be an easy thing. They're going to get written off, but they're going to be perhaps more eager than ever to do it because they really want to prove a point. And, she turned pro late. I know she's on the older side of things in the career-wise compared to that of Dubois, who turned pro much earlier. But she's definitely, like I say, had success, caused upsets in the past, and Canadian boxing, I would say, is in a pretty good state at the moment. You have some names in which perhaps aren't even from Canada, but are fighting outside of Canada or fighting from Canada. But we've recently seen Sarah. Hagigat Zhu, sorry about my pronunciation, or Sarah Bailey, who's become a world champion and is looking excellent in Canadian boxing. So I feel like that could drive someone like a Camara to really want to prove and put Canadian boxing on an even higher level or pedigree. But yeah, to speak about the main event, I mean, obviously there's some good names on the undercard as well, alongside Caroline Dubois. I mean, Denise is on it. He's branded as the Turkish Tyson. Had a tough fight last time. It's good to see him back. I think this will be, it's not really a step up in opponents, but it's nice to see him back. Mario Silva, I think he's an excellent talent. I had the pleasure of interviewing him after his last fight, and like I say, I feel like he is an excellent talent, and I feel like I'm really interested to see how he progresses and the skills in which he has. Forrest as well. Scott Forrest, it's great to see him back. He's fighting Devon Miller. That's a good fight. Devon Miller, of course, coming off a loss, but isn't a bad fighter at all. And Forrest has been really cut short with the activity and hasn't fought in a Sky Show in a while. To be honest, I kind of forgot about him. I remembered him. I saw him at an event and I was like, what happened to this fighter? What happened to him? I believe it was injuries that was causing problems. I'm not entirely sure, but it's great to see him back on this show. I believe coming in on a little bit of short notice. I'm not too sure. But to speak about the main event, like I say, the event is a good event. It's not a crazy, high event. There's not a stack card, but there is some more good events coming with Sky. Of course, we've got Jonas Price, we've got Azim Lipinets. There's a few good shows from Boxer, and so hopefully it'll be a good year for 2025, and it's the first boxing show to kickstart that. But yeah, like I say, the main event is of course Simpson versus Woodall. I think it's a good fight. It's surprising to see that it's not Simpson versus Jeffers. Jeffers was at the last fight for Simpsons, of course when he beat Zach Chelli, and it seemed like they were kind of crossing paths. That was gonna make sense. But then it didn't happen, and Jeffers fought in the Jonas undercard. He won convincingly. He's frustrated that he's still fighting at that low level and had to, fight at that low level to keep active and not fighting someone like a Callum Simpson. But it seems like that's going to happen if he wins against Woodall. I'm not entirely sure. He said he wants it. Jeffers says he wants it, but they also said that before. So hopefully it will happen because I think that would make for an excellent fight. But of course he has to get through Woodall. Woodall is coming off a great last fight versus Lerone Richards where he got a very surprise stoppage win where, perhaps the fight was not the most interesting of fights. Lerone Richards was on the back foot most of the time, trying to box. Woodall was trying to kind of get past his jab and work his way in a little bit gradually, but then he just landed one shot. I think that Richards got too comfortable. I think the inactivity was really not doing well for his career, and I'm a fan of Lerone Richards. I thought he did have a lot of talent, a lot of skills, but like I say, I feel like the inactivity had really slowed things down for him. And Woodall caught him with a great shot, landed that shot, all you needed. Same as you kind of see a lot of the time in boxing, just that one punch is all you need, and he, reaps the rewards as he gets another headline now. Show in on TV, and so he's changed his career around, starting early in his career fighting in America. Fought Steve Rolls before Steve Rolls fought Golovkin when he was 12-0. He got stopped, but it was still a good tough test. He's fought some good guys, Woodall, and he's been willing to mix it, and that stint out in America definitely showed him a lot. I think he's had that kind of second wind in his career now, and he's really up for this, and he's really motivated, and I think he's more energized than ever before. He might be able to have a lot of success. We'll have to wait and see. This is, of course, for the British and Commonwealth super middleweight titles, in which I believe Simpson holds both of them at the moment. Woodall, I think, had an intercontinental title after the Lerone Richards fight, but I don't think he was actually able to, keep it, I suppose, or I don't know if he's vacated it or if it's actually on for this fight. I don't believe it is available for this fight. But nonetheless, I do think Simpson will win via TKO in round 10. I think Simpson is awkward. I think Woodall's going to be, having to deal with that awkwardness. He's got that jittery type of style, Simpson. Woodall, I just don't see him being able to land that punch that really stuns Simpson. Simpson's footwork can be messy. He can, look a bit sloppy and closer. Perhaps he could land that one shot, but I just don't see it happening again. It's rare to see it happen more than, that kind of lucky to an extent shot, that perfectly timed shot. It's rare to see it happen in two fights in a row. Simpson, I think, has that momentum with him as well. He's going to be really keen to put on another statement victory. I think he was close to getting Chelly out there on multiple occasions, but I just think his footwork and his smotheringness kind of stopped him. Do I think he's able to win a world title? I don't necessarily know, but it's going to be interesting to see how his career progresses, and I think Sky have definitely got, and Boxer have got a route and a plan for him. It's just going to be interesting to see, like I say, how it goes. I think a late stoppage win here would be a very good result for him, and I think that's what's going to happen. And like I say, I think he's going to win via TKO in round 10. Going back to the main event, and so of course, starting with Dubois, I'm going to say what she does, in my opinion, personally, right, or I suppose to a high standard, and then listen things perhaps more negative, not criticising, just things perhaps in my opinion she just different for her style. But starting off, so obviously she turns into her punches very well. It's very nice to see. A lot of fighters you see at professional level, even at world championship level, not to just put it into a box of women's boxers, but sometimes you see it. They don't turn into their shots. A lot of their shots are just arm punches, but you see Dubois rip her shots to the body, to the head, planting her feet very well. It looks strong, it looks aggressive. Recent times she's been able to get quite consistent knockdowns and have a lot of success. Perhaps not being able to stop her opponents, but just getting 10-8 rounds, collecting 10-8 rounds. It's something in which you don't often see, and it's nice, of course, to see. She has fast hands. She's got technical skill. You can see that she's very well drilled. She'll definitely listen to her coaches. Whatever Shane McGuigan will say, of course, he's a world level coach. Whatever he will say, she'll take in. She'll use well. In that last fight versus Monio, Shane McGuigan was saying to time her with that overhand when she was coming in. That's what worked. That's what I believe got her the knockdown. And it's just, like I say, listening to coaches, using the skill in which you learn from them, staying disciplined, perhaps sometimes becoming a little bit predictable, using it too much, but for the most part, it's nice to see. She circles well, she goes to the body nicely, she's got a nice balanced wide stance. Perhaps that means at times she's not able to move as fluidly as perhaps she may want, or she may not be able to have the footwork, which is best if she gets caught with a counter. But, for the most part, it's a nice balanced wide stance in which, like I say, is able to generate power from the hip, from the waist when she turns into her shots. She's got very good timing. She keeps her hands high. She can fight on the front or the back foot. She's got good shot variation. Perhaps I would like to see the uppercuts come into play a little bit more in her shots. Sometimes, she'll go for the overhands a bit too much, but she's got very good overhands, good body shots, good jab when she uses it. Sometimes she can use that a little bit more as well, but in general, good shot variation. Fighting at a pressure pace. Even if somebody's putting the pressure on her, even if she's getting put onto the back foot, she's now learnt how to adapt and fight in a way in which she can deal with pressure. And it's hard to learn. Not a lot of fighters are able to learn and develop that, but that's what you have to be able to do to fight at a world level. You've got to be able to deal with the pressure in which any type of fighter can put on you, because a lot of fighters, you have that Mexican style. Perhaps it's not the most technical, but they're going to be putting on the constant pressure. It's going to be hard to deal with, and Dubois has kind of learned how to deal with that well. She's strong, strong, uh, fast hands, and good high IQ technical boxing. It's to an extent a perfect combination, and it's very well drilled as well. There's tweaks still to be made, but it's very well drilled, and it's very nice to see. She's accurate as well when she wants to be at a mid range. I would say she's accurate in close, sometimes not so much, but for the most part at a mid range she's accurate. And I suppose negatives about her, I think obviously it's interesting to see the ability of her, how well she can stop her opponents, because you know like I mentioned, she's had multiple times now in which she's dropped her opponent. Is it the fact that her coaches are saying don't go for the stoppage? Is it the fact it's just not coming and she's getting unlucky? Is it the fact that she can't figure out how to get the stoppages, work the angles, deal with a fighter when they're just going to try and tie up? I'm not too sure. Getting a bit too comfy, I think perhaps she could overlook, perhaps she could get a bit too comfy in rounds, and that's when she can get caught with shots. Like I say, with her footwork at times. her fluency in combinations. Sometimes she's not throwing, multiple kind of punch combinations. Sometimes it is loading up on shots a bit too long and waiting a bit too long. She can get drawn into a fight at times. That's definitely going to play into Camara's favour. I think Camara is going to be very keen to get her dragged into a fight, a war. Will it happen? I'm not too sure. I think her last fight, like I said, Dubois looked very much more improved. She definitely could have gone into a war in that fight versus Monio, but she didn't, and that was nice to see. And like I say, it showed improvements. She can be a bit predictable with her overhands and, continually just going overhand, overhand, overhand. It worked when she got the knockdown, but if you're going for it over and over again, it's not always necessarily going to work. Her, like I say, backwards footwork isn't always amazing. It's improving. She is able to circle better now, but at times it isn't always amazing, and she has been caught out in the past because of it. She, like I say, dealing with a high output, I think she can deal with pressure, but dealing with a high output is something a bit different. And when you're in close, I think in close, when she's getting hit at a high output, I'm just not too sure how well she can actually deal with that. And Camara might be able to, showcase that. Negatives, speaking about Camara, she often leads off with a jab. She's got a nice jab, and often, like I say, pretty much most shots are off her jab. Perhaps a little bit better in that aspect than that of Dubois, but yeah, a lot of her shots are off her jab, and it's a nice fundamental to have. She has also got big overhands in which she's going to be keen to throw, so perhaps at some point it could be just a back and forth with who's got the bigger overhands. And so, Camara definitely has her own punch power, her own aggression, perhaps a bit more aggression that's perhaps less controlled, but it's nice to see. And sometimes that less controlled can be harder to deal with because it can come with more power because you're not really, perhaps listening as much. It's just going off pure instinct a little bit more. She's strong. She'll go to the body as well. She won't respect you as an opponent. I think sometimes, of course, you'll see fighters, especially ones in which are coming to opposition's world champion's country, respecting way too much, but the age is on her side, the experience is on her side with Camara, and I think she's definitely not going to respect Dubois as an opponent, and she is going to try and make it rough and tough for her. She's good at keeping you out of range. I think that's definitely going to be interesting to see because a lot of the fighters in which Dubois has faced so far have just been come forwards type fighters that are not going to offer that same kind of mid-range fighting ability, and I think Camara has that. She often throws in pairs. Again, perhaps not the combinations in which you'd like to see, but often throwing in pairs, which is nice for fighting at a mid-range. I think if it gets in close, she might, struggle a bit, but in general, she will fight at a mid-range well. She always aims to respond whenever she gets hit to a shot, so I definitely think it could be, again, like I say, a war. If she's going to get hit with big overhands from Dubois, she's going to then throw them. So is Dubois going to try and circle out the way? It'd be impressive if she does, because Camara is probably going to be trying to respond to every single shot all night. She wants to slow you down and she wants to drag you into a fight, especially late. She'll slow down later on in the fight. To be honest, a negatives about her, she'll slow down actually after the first couple rounds, which is not the best to see. But when she really slowed down into the later rounds, then she'll try her best to drag you into a dogfight, and she was able to do that versus Hunter. I know Hunter was much lower level opposition than that of Dubois, but it worked well there, and she's probably going to want to use that again. More negatives about it, I think she can overreach with her shots at mid range. I think her head sometimes, is when she starts off fight, she's going back and forth, moving like this. It's nice to see, but then she'll slow it down. It'll go on the line. She's not really got a crazy amount of head movement, so she could definitely get timed with shots if she does try and come in. She can lunge in at times. She struggles if the fight isn't at her pace, and I think she does kind of want to fight to be at a bit of a slower pace if she can make it. She can be messy and close. She can slow down early. She can get comfortable. She can want to, like I say, fight at a slower tempo. Her reactions aren't anywhere near the level of Dubois, but I think again that's come with age and her slowing down. She'll throw her shots from lower down. Dubois throws her shots from typically higher up. When she's throwing a hook, it's nice to see you can see it coming from higher up. You look at fighters like Canelo, perhaps he doesn't throw all his shots from high up. A lot of the times his hooks can come from low and it can catch fighters off guard, but for the most part, you like to see a nice hook that can come from the position around the head, and it's nice to see. But she can also be flat-footed as well. Camara. Dubois is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Dubois will win via split decision. I think she is perhaps going to get dragged into a war into the later rounds. I think it's going to be the battle of the big overhands. I think Dubois is going to be the much faster fighter out of the two. I think Camara is probably gonna pace herself a bit more than I think she did in the Hunter fight and not come out quite as reactive or trying to be as reactive in the first few rounds and then try and conserve that energy. I think she's gonna make it very tough with the minimal respect she's going to give Dubois and the experience in which she has. Dubois, I think, like I say, I think her footwork is going to catch her out where perhaps she's going to be planting her feet too much and Camara might be able to land her jab consistently on her. But for the most part, I think Dubois is going to be able to land the quicker work, perhaps the more accurate work. If she can get in close, I think her body work will be better, and then she'll be able to win via a relatively close split decision. It's seemingly that Camara is able to take you to split decisions against high-level opposition. I think she'll be able to do the same versus Dubois here. Perhaps it's not the win in which is going to really kind of bolster her record and really going to push her along and be like, wow, you really need to move her on quickly. Perhaps it might slow Sky down a little bit, which is a little bit of a shame. But who she could then go on to fight next? Something like a Ferreira, of course, is the fight I want to see. If it's not next, it should be the fight after. Hopefully we see it. Like I mentioned, the vacant WBA title is on the line. Put them two for that title. It'll be an excellent fight. It got ordered. Why isn't it being made? I'm not too sure. Harper could be a fight, of course. Harper, another matchroom fighter. Harper might fight Ferreira. That could be a good fight for matchroom, and that would be an easy one to make. But Harper might fight her. You never know. Anderson is an American who's, I believe, 8-0. That could be a good fight to be made, an easy fight to be made. Ferreira is an Argentinian who I believe is 11-0-1. That could be a good fight to be made. Bringing another fighter over. If she struggles with Camara, then perhaps she does need another fight before she's able to fight someone like a Ferreira. Instead, fight Ferreira. But yeah, like I said, there's options there. I'm sure the fans won't be too keen on another fighter to come over that they've never really heard of. But not too sure what will happen. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like it if you didn't, like it, subscribe if you're new. And thanks for watching.